So let's talk about the Jazz and what they got going on right now. I mean, I'm looking at the Jazz, and they're really one of the teams which they just don't really have anything going on. They're a team which, from the start, they've had a pretty successful run as a team. Their whole, history as a franchise, they've been pretty successful. But the one thing they've always struggled to do is get playoff success. And this comes from, people being accustomed to the Jazz being a good franchise, but the Jazz really never being able to push over the hump and be a championship team. This is because of many reasons. We could see this in many teams like the Karl Malone and John Stockton teams, or in others like the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. But in general, we've always seen the Jazz as one of the teams where it's like this team is not very good. Even if we don't like to admit it, even if we do like to admit it, this team is not good, and it's just because of the way that they run themselves and the way that they've picked out their teams for years. What the Jazz like to do, and what I've noticed, is that they like dynamic duos. And this is not bad, but I'm sorry, and it's going to be very difficult for two guys to win you a championship. Like, not everyone is LeBron, not everyone is Jordan, where they alone could win you a championship just by having good enough teammates, right? No, like, there are a lot of people who need superstar teammates to win, because not everyone can elevate the floor of your franchise the way that the GOATs can. And this is something that the Jazz had to realize, right? Because the Jazz are a team which has had many, 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 many different, stages. Recently, their most recent stage was a rebuilding stage. They decided, well, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as teammates don't work. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna throw the towel, trade everything, and see what we can get back. First, they traded Rudy Gobert, and they traded him for an ungodly package, where they shipped everything, right? Like, they put out Rudy Gobert, and the Timberwolves gave them 5 first-round picks and 5 players. That means in the total, the Jazz got around 10 assets. And one of those assets was a guy like Walker Kessler, which was one of the best rookies we've seen in a while defensively, right? So already we could see a very noticeable pattern, right? And then, right, what they did was that they were like, okay, so what we're going to do is just see if we could get stars and young stars back. And then they took Donovan Mitchell and they traded him to Cleveland. And Cleveland they gave them a couple of players. They gave them rookie Ochai Agbaji, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, etc. And they gave them around 3 or 4 first-round picks and pick swaps. So when we saw this happen, these trades, we thought that the Jazz were going to be trash. But in the end, what ended up happening was that the Jazz were actually much better than we thought they were. They were trying to lose for the season. They wanted a high draft pick and they wanted Wembanyama, right? But really, it ended up working out for them because their star player in Lauri Markkanen ended up making an all-star team and being one of the best players in the NBA, even winning most improved, right? And in my opinion, this was really due to the fact that he finally got to show that he was good enough to be a number one option. Like, he averaged 25 points on almost 50% from the field. Like, on 50% from the field, 39% from 3, and 87.5% from the free throw line, with 8 rebounds and 2 assists, with with half a steal and half a block. And this jump by Lauri really was a surprise because people have been talking about Lauri his whole career, right? They've been talking about, oh, he's gonna be a sniper, he's gonna be this, and he's gonna be that. But we had never really seen that materialize. And he was one of these guys who he was kept in the league, he was kept in league circles because everyone knew that, oh, this kid could actually be something. But in the end, he didn't end up doing anything. But now that you take a season where he's almost 50, 40, 90, and we can't even tell him that he had a bad season because his team is trash. And the fact that he got his team, to lift their heads up and be like, oh, we're not that bad. Like, we could actually do this. And I believe is incredible. And he's extremely cheap, too. So in my opinion, Lauri Markkanen really got his shine in Utah. And that's something that we've seen now. So for the Utah Jazz fans, I imagine they're pretty excited when now you have your superstar. And that's what I like about what the Jazz have been doing. The Jazz are a team which have consistently lost or won, and there's really been no in between. They're normally a team which is either at the top of the league or in the bottom of it pretty consistently, right? And now that the Jazz have found who's going to be their player for the future in Lauri Markkanen, right? And the fact that they don't have to worry about that is phenomenal. Obviously, it would have been good to get Wembanyama, but in my opinion, as a franchise, the Jazz look at themselves right now and they're like, we like our situation. We like where we are. Even if we don't have Wembanyama, even if we don't like some of the role players who we have right now, all of that could be changed. And you guys have enough draft picks and enough assets to change that in the future. Because the Jazz got a haul of draft picks for Rudy Gobert. And all of this really is to say that, honestly, I think the Jazz are in a good position for the future, There's a lot of teams which I feel negatively about, which I don't like how they run themselves. I don't like this, I don't like that. But with the Jazz, I do believe that they've done a good job of differentiating what is illusion and what is real, Like in one part, you could say like, oh yeah, they should have kept Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, right? But it's like, should they really have? Because there gets to a point where if you believe in your superstars too much, that's just delusion, right? Like, I'm sorry, but unless you have a generational superstar, believing in your guys as if they were the best guys in the league, that is not, really reliable. And you could see that, right, with a team like Dallas, where they were overly loyal to a superstar, and it paid off for them. But then you could see it in another team like the Blazers, where they've been overly loyal to them, and he's been overly loyal to them, and he hasn't won anything. He hasn't even made it to the finals yet. So in my opinion, when we really talk about what is and what it isn't, we need to talk about the fact that the Jazz really were able to get out of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell before making it a bigger problem than what it was. And I believe you do have to respect them for that, as they managed to, balance themselves out, get themselves in a new position where now they don't need to be relying on those two guys to disappoint them every year. And they could actually do something with the new core, expand on it, trade everybody. But they have enough options right now to the point where they're satisfied. So yeah, that's how I feel about the Jazz right now. I do believe that they've done some good moves and that they've been consistently great with what they've done and very smart about it. They're one of the few teams that's under the cap this year. And in my opinion, yeah, let's see the Jazz next year and let's see what they do. Yeah.